Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome back to Wargame. This is the same game as I was casting yesterday. It's the game that's called Uncoordinated Attacks. And somebody was asking, how do I attack over here? In case you watched the video from yesterday, this was the guy who was operating the Leclerc. It doesn't really matter which guy it is, but he came forward in the comments, he said, oh shit, that was me. I played terrible, how do I improve? And I can definitely respect that, and I want to give him some pointers. This is by no means going to be perfect. This is how I would play. Now, suppose you are blue 4. Your objective is initially to hold Charlie and then to push the Delta. That's what you... let's assume that that's what you want to do. Now, he had a Leclerc. The Leclerc, for most of the time, was sitting over there. I also saw it over here. Those spots, let's just say, are not great for a Leclerc. Because a Leclerc, from this position here, it can attack, let's say, to here. It can attack to here, but neither of those angles are likely. And to make matters worse, these positions, so let's just say this distance over here, that is infantry ATGM range, or even worse, ATGM or infantry AT range, anti-tank in general. So it could be a Carl Gustav if you're facing blue 4, it could be a Vampire if you're facing red 4. It can very easily put your Leclerc out of business. So this is ideally not where I would want to be with my tank. If you have a Leclerc, I would ideally put it somewhere over here. Because from this position, what happens is that you can spot quite a bit. You can spot, let's say, this ridge line here. You can fire at units that are coming across from there. I'm still getting used to this whole pen thing, by the way. I think you might just be able to fire at stuff from over there onto that ridge line, that tree line over there, but it is shaky. So these positions are possible for Leclerc. Aside from that, overall in general, what would I use and where? Here, I would have recon. This would be slightly better over here, this position, because you can spot not just, let's say, this line of sight, but from this position over here, you can spot virtually anything. And all of this area is going to be detectable. So all of that area can be spotted from over there. Second, you're making sure that red cannot simply push in with a vehicle or with infantry and attack you, because you will see them coming. So that is a very important position. So I would place reconnaissance over there. I would then probably place an HGM unit over here. Although this position, the HGM, it sometimes interferes with line of sight. What's happening here is that this ridge can be a problem. So you can, from this position, shoot down onto here. But as soon as the vehicle gets to here, you're going to be in trouble, because the HGM cannot fire that much downward without exposing the HGM unit. So I would be very careful over there. Anyway, that's if I want to defend. If I want to attack, you have a couple of different options. One, you could just go from here to there, which is risky as hell, because you're going to get shot at from here. Let's say this forest over here, which is going to take side shots at you. And let's say that you have a tank going that way. Then what's going to happen is that this side of your armor is going to be exposed. And that is usually side armor, which is not very heavy. So I don't want to be pushing across there. Ideally, I would be making my push over here. This area. Of course, it will be defended. Red 4 is likely to have units over here, over here, over there, over here potentially, and maybe over there as a fallback position. So what I would do in this case is first try to get some recon, although reconning infantry in these buildings is not going to be easy. So you're going to have to get quite close. Don't bring your Leclerc in this case, because it is too expensive. If you got infantry in these buildings and you push up your Leclerc over here, this is your Leclerc, then what's going to happen is that the infantry takes one look at you, shoots you, and you lose either half your hit points, most of your hit points, or the whole tank. So be very, very careful with this particular attack. Don't use a Leclerc over there. What I would use over here are fire support vehicles. A couple of transports, potentially. The LV-25 comes to mind from the American deck. You can use a Comvat, you can use a Bradley, you can use a Martyr. Martyr 2 would be ideal, actually, because a Martyr 1 is just going to get one shot, but a Martyr 2 from here, let's say this area, can shoot the building over there. It can provide fire support on units which are attacking here. And that way you can have a little bit more fire support as you're moving up. I would also try to charge down this road, but you don't want to do that unescorted. I would start out first with hitting these buildings with artillery, making sure that whatever's in there is going to be less combat effective because it's going to get panicked, it's going to be ideally stunned, but that's not going to be easy. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on what sort of caliber of artillery you're hitting them with. In this case, I would probably have my mortars sitting somewhere over here. So these are my mortars. And then I would first hit the buildings. So that's step 1. Step 2, I would put up a smoke screen over here. Just making sure that my units, which are pushing up across this road, because road vehicles are fastest to move in, they are going to be capable of dropping off the infantry very close to the buildings without being shot at. What's also going to happen is that you can push vehicles, I'm going to have to delete all of that. You can push your vehicles, let's say, to here. Your fire support vehicles, that is, could be a medium tank. If you're blue, maybe an M60, an M48 A5 if you're really in a pinch. A Kyler would be ideal from the German deck, because they have not only a gun, but also an autocannon, which can fire at the same time. Other tanks which would be useful are the Nanayon Shiki G, which is the tank with a grenade launcher. Those can all provide fire support from, let's say, this tree line here. Not too close to this building. You want to capture this one first, because then you're removing the threat from that building for vehicles which are currently potentially going to be over there. Aside from that, once you have this building, you can then start to put more pressure on this building, this one and that one. And with that, you can start to clear up the area. I would not use ATGM infantry. I would just use standard infantry, because these buildings are so close together and the line of sight this way is pretty damn poor that an ATGM won't have time to aim. If you are in this building, what you can do over here is put the Legionnaire, if you're using the French deck. French, Eurocorps, even a general deck, if you really want to. The Legionnaire have a range of 1050, and that's Legionnaire 90, by the way, so this is going to be the Legionnaire 90. These can engage vehicles that are coming out of this tree line, here, and once they use their Erics, they're going to be one-shotting vehicles. They will also be capable of very effectively damaging enemy tanks. If the tanks are over here, though, you're in trouble. Because from here, they probably won't have the range. This distance is too great for the Erics. But I think they can still make this one. So the lower one, this one's okay. This one, no good. You're not going to make that shot. Once you're there, clearing up the rest of Delta is going to be infantry work. Don't use a tank. A tank unescorted in the woods is a dead tank. So I would have, let's say, infantry pushing through here and having a couple of fire support vehicles maybe here. Again, a Martyr could be working effectively. You push your infantry through here. Once this is clear, you can then move through here. And ideally, you use a two-pronged assault. So either you or your teammates pushing north, and you're pushing south, or vice versa. And that way, pretty quickly, you're going to be able to get to the end of the sector. Then, let's say you're here. This is when it's going to get a little bit more tricky, because now you're facing an open area. There's a very good chance that at this point, you'll be facing units which are coming in from red, so they're coming across the road. And that actually is quite good. Because if you have a recon unit here, or well, ideally here, but this is a pretty risky spot, you will see them coming from a long, long distance away. That means that from this spot, you can have the Leclerc again, or any other tank which has 2275 meter range. This will work against vehicles and almost all tanks. If you're facing a lot of infantry though, put your fire support vehicles here. So let's say FSV, fire support vehicles. Those are going to be effective at suppressing enemy infantry. Now, you're pushing up through here, so it's an open area. If you still have your mortars at this point, smoke up this area. Because otherwise, if the enemy has a couple of tanks in these forests over here, you're going to have a hard time pushing through. Whereas if you put up a smoke screen, and ideally you just smoke all the way to the tree line, your vehicles can drive right in, drop off the infantry. Don't let your infantry walk. It's not going to work. You push through, and you start taking out the tanks. And once you're there, it's actually pretty close to get to the enemy base. This is the approach that I would use. It's by no means the only way that you can do it. I mean, if you're looking at this map, you could argue, well, I'm going to go around with a helicopter and maybe I can do that. You can try flying all the way around here, dropping off your infantry over there. So let's say that this is your LZ. And then once you're there, let me just move to that position. It is going to be a little tricky, by the way, to drop off your infantry because they need landing zones. So this could be a landing zone. This could be an LZ. And if you are really bold, you could use this as an LZ, but that's quite close to Red Fort territory already. I wouldn't use this because they're going to see you and they're going to be firing at you because units from the buildings over there, but also from the forest over here, fire support vehicles, there could be spawning tanks. This whole area is very dangerous to use. If you are landing your infantry here, you can push through the forest, through the woods, and then you can hopefully capture this building, which would be ideal. Again, the French Legionnaires are very nice because they have that medium anti-tank range with their Erics, or, well, similar infantry. Make sure that they can kick out enemy infantry anyway. Although in not just this building, but basically the whole building block, you're not that likely to encounter much. Unless the enemy has already been pushed back to this particular area. Anyway, that's the way that I would approach this problem. If you want to be pushing through. If you want to be using a Leclerc in general, I would really probably not take it over here. Because these areas are then going to trap you. If you have your Leclerc over here, you can only fall back. You can really not advance because there are likely to be HEGMs over here, there, in this town. They could be there. You don't know. So your Leclerc can really only fall back. And once it's back here, it's useless. And you have 165 points doing nothing. Which is what we saw in that uncoordinated attacks map. Or video. So that's not what I would do. Let's get the dot off the screen. I would... Shit. I would be pushing with a Leclerc probably over here. This area or this area. Although this one is more risky. You got HEGMs or short-range anti-tank infantry going from here and there, which makes it more difficult. This area is potentially a little easier to use. But even here, you can encounter infantry. This whole area usually favors infantry and vehicles. Jeez, I just drew an alien on the screen. This whole area usually favors infantry and fire support vehicles, but you also quite frequently see tanks. Heavy tanks. As we have seen before, at least in the video from yesterday, that is, there were T-80Us over there. I think there was a T-72BU also operating here, and the M1A1 was over there. So these are short-range tank engagements, which usually favors a big gun and a lot of armor, so you're going to have to go with a heavy. If you were to go with a, let's say, a standard T-80, something like a T-80 over there, and you do encounter this M1A1, good luck. He's going to probably one-shot you. So be careful here. And what also helps, and both, I think both red and blue, but mostly red made use of it, is smoke. If you want to be pushing from here to here, setting up a smoke screen here is going to make it quite easy to push in. Because enemy will probably have recon over there, maybe over here, and then they can see you coming. But if they only have this recon unit, then you can keep pushing, 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 and if they have no smoke, or if they have no line of sight, because this smoke screen over here is blocking your line of sight, then you can push in with vehicles. You can drop them off. If you don't use smoke, so you have the blue 4 recon unit over there, and your vehicles are coming in from over there and pushing across, and there is just a tank over here, or maybe over there, all your vehicles, these guys are going to die, because the tanks are going to take them out. What happens then is that your infantry is caught right out in the open, which is likely to encounter airstrikes. So blue was doing airstrikes previously. Red could support, but it's going to be hard to get this infantry over here. So it is quite tricky. Anyway, this was just a quick video to highlight how you can be using the Leclerc, or how I would be pushing across from Charlie to Delta and then beyond. It also works in reverse. Just keep an eye on your terrain. Keep an eye on what sort of terrain am I fighting in, what sort of units do I need, what sort of encounters am I likely to have, and what sort of tools will I require. Anyway, let me know if this if this video was useful to you down below in the comments. I'm still practicing using this whole tool thing, and I think it's quite handy, but it makes navigating around the map a little trickier. And I'm using a still footage, I'm not actually using a replay. Once I'm using a replay, this could be a bit trickier. I don't know about the video quality as well, I'm just capturing a display instead of the game, so I'm not sure how well it's going to work. Anyway, let me know if you like this format. If so, I might do more videos on it. Just let me know down below in the comments. Have a good weekend, guys, and I'll catch you soon for more Wargame.